Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Boring Enterprise Nerdcast, where we are really boring and we talk about boring things and it's really boring and nobody cares. And so with that in our heads, today, myself and Yelena, wave hi, Yelena.
Hello.
Say hi, because we're on video and audio, so you can say and wave hi. Today we have with us to talk about like just a plethora of things, like a wide variety of inside SAP tech nerd things. We have the amazing, I'm a big fan, have been a big fan for years. We have the amazing Paul Hardy. Paul, say hi. Give us a quick how you doing, whatever intro if you want, but please, we're lucky to have you on. It's great to have you.
Okay, I'll give you the 30-second biography.
Yeah.
I'm Paul Hardy, as has been said. Originally from the UK, but I've lived in Australia for the last 20 years. Author of 7 SAP books thus far.
Wow.
And, a good old SAP mentor and do lots of talks on public events. And that's about the size of it, really.
Yeah, and that's like, so 7 books, that's incredible. 7 SAP books, that's incredible. That's awesome. When did you, because you guys, so just again, the inside SAP thing, I just became an SAP mentor like within the last year or so. And you guys are, I think, are like long time, like, I don't know if you're still a mentor or not, Paul, but it's been a while since you were first brought in, right? It's been years since you've been there.
Yeah, I suppose time goes by like a rocket. Maybe 2015, 2016, I can't remember exactly.
Okay. Okay.
Around about then.
And then Yelena, you were even, I think, a little before that, right?
Yeah, it was 2014, I think, or even 13 till like 2018, 19, something like that. Okay. Yeah, we overlapped quite a bit with Paul in the mentorship. So we have ultimate mentor power today in this podcast.
Yeah. Like, do we need to, maybe we should sign some NDAs just for fun. I don't know. But really what we came on here to talk about is like lots of different things SAP development wise. And I think one thing that would be great to do is, because we're all mentors, we're all authors, we're all deep SAP nerds, is we should really start to give our perspective, I think, from the like author mentor level of what's the current state of SAP development. Like, as developers who are out there like getting stuff done for our customers or our companies, what's the state of that? What's the state of play in the universe for that?
I think I can start and then pass over to Paul, because the book that I have published most recently, it's ABAP introduction book. So it's a book for ABAP beginners, and me and Brian O'Neill, who wrote it together with me, we intentionally tried to place it as sort of a prequel to really excellent Paul's book, ABAP to the Future. So ours gives developers or anyone who is curious to learn about ABAP some ground knowledge that Paul's book, and I think it's a first edition here for our viewers on YouTube, and Paul published many more editions after that. So our introduction book is not just introduction to ABAP, but it's also kind of introduction to Paul's book series that allow everyone to explore much further. So yeah, Paul, over to you. What's your view on ABAP to the future and state of future of ABAP, if you will?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, SAP does evolve very, very quickly, and there's always loads of new things coming out. But from my observation, it's rather like the Amish in America. People like to stay like 100 years behind, as it were, which is why procedural programming is not going anywhere in a hurry, and why the SAP GUI is not going anywhere in a hurry. And I have to say, from doing interviews lately, there is a gigantic skill shortage out there, which is why your books like the Introduction to ABAP are actually absolutely needed. Because I was doing interviews the other day, and of the candidates, only one had even the slightest idea of what an inline declaration was. for example.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that even this very Friday, I'm got a recording with SAP to do a 2-minute video of trying to encourage young people to go down the ABAP route, shall we say?
Yeah.
Because really not many are.
What's the like? I this has been something that's popped into my head, and I think maybe almost for the last 4 or 5 months or so, I've kind of become aware, and then more and more aware. Why is it you guys think that? And people can tell by my accent that I'm born and raised in the U.S. Like, why is it we think that the U.S. kind of lags in that ABAP department, right? Because we don't like. I think you're right. I think the U.S. is a little bit of a weight in the cart of things progressing forward, so to speak, in the tech and in that kind of stuff. Why do you guys think that is?
Well, one thing, I was talking to a US colleague of mine, and he was amazed when I told him that in Monash University in Victoria, in Australia, there's actually you can do courses in SAP at the university.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything like that in the States, I believe.
There's one program I know of that I think might have even died. So yeah.
Yes, there are programs in universities, but they are not in ABAP. They are not even in SAP development. I can speak like for the whole University Alliance, of course, but all the programs, all the professors I talk to and faculty staff, all of those programs, they are preparing functional consultants. None of the programs that I know of, it doesn't mean they don't exist, but they obviously not very well known if not many people heard about them. They just do not prepare developers. And I suspect that maybe historically US was more affected by outsourcing. That's one of my theories. And maybe second theory is just, to be honest, at this point in time, I think wages for SAP developers are really not on par with the rest of development world. So whoever like me and Paul kind of started a while ago and just continuing, we are, I'm not likely to switch to Java programming all of a sudden, even though I can. I'm sure all of us could do well in other languages, but it's just, it's not the time for us probably changing careers. But other developers, younger developers, they have very little incentive to go into SAP because they don't have to go through specialized training. They can use a lot of their knowledge that they got out of college and go play someplace else that pays them sometimes literally, I think, twice as much than what average developer makes in the United States, at least.
That would do it, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
There it is. So there's an interesting, I think there's an interesting sub question here, or related question. And Yelena, you and I have discussed this a little bit, I think. And the question is, oh gosh, how did this go? This, like, we're very observant of what, like, SAP, the people like us who are the mentors and the authors and the passionate people, we're very observant of what SAP puts out there in terms of like dev advocacy and events and things like that push tech and tools really far forward, right? In good ways, I think. But there's also like what's happening in the real world, right? Out at companies, out at the big SIs, out at all that kind of stuff. Like, Paul, do you see that there's like a pretty big, like a yawning chasm between like, whoa, shiny new, and yeah, but here's what happens day to day, right? Do you see that?
Yes, I've got a wonderful example of this sort of thing. Take the good old BOPF framework. For example. That was be pushed by SAP as a big shiny new thing, and only, I think it was 2 months ago, the development manager in our company in Germany heard of it, right? And he said to one of my colleagues, right, do you think we should do training on this? He said, no, because it's obsolete. And so by the time people have heard of something, it's obsolete.
It's already aged off. Yeah.
So yes, there's a gap between SAP bringing something out and it's used
That's
in the
hilarious.
real world.
That's hilarious. Huh. Well, Yelena, what are your thoughts there? Because we've talked about this a bit, but like, air it for the world. Like, what do you think is going on there?
Yeah, kind of to advertise more books, because Paul also have written some, except I have just one of them. There is SAP Data Science with SAP, and you also authored a book on SAP UI5. It's funny because all of our books, essentially, all of them, it took three people and more to write them, but all of that is what SAP developers are expected to know.
Yeah.
And to add insult to injury, all of this knowledge and effort for lower pay compared to other developers. I mean, come on now. And yeah, to add to this, SAP kind of constantly dropping old toys to chase shiny new toys, and without even real strategies there. I totally understand that technology kind of rotates, becomes obsolete, but I mean, come on, guys, just throw us a bone here, just or cut us some slack, however you call it. I mean, you need to share with us what's your next ways, at least, or something like that, or do something about it.
Yeah, it is. I do think there is kind of that possibility for every new shiny thing. It's possible for someone who has, I mean, even modest longevity in their career, for them to entirely miss it or not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Right. It can go peripheral to what you're doing, and just by the time, just like Paul's example, by the time you become aware of it, it won't matter. Right. And like, I'm not even sure that that's necessarily a bad thing, although I do think it feels a little more splintered than other ecosystems. Although I guess I kind of compare it to newer ecosystems. So maybe I'm talking out of my whatever here, like, because in my head I always compare like SAP technology stuff to, because I'm like a cloud guy. I love Azure, I love GCP, I love AWS, all that stuff. I'm always playing around. I'm always reading the news and that stuff. And to me, that's what my head is sort of full of, is those things. And so even if it's not a right or just or fair comparison, I'm always looking at SAP tech in terms of those techs, right? And maybe that's not fair to either to SAP or to those other guys, that I'm like, but look at all the shinies over here that people are actually like grabbing onto and using, versus all of the shinies over here that like pass over people's heads entirely and don't get used and disappear into the past and are gone. You know what I mean? So I don't know, maybe I'm navel gazing a bit too much here, but I think I when I get on my thought train about tech, when I mix SAP in with other things, SAP comes out as like, you know how if you make something like a stew or whatever, right? There's like, sometimes you just get the big clump of ham that's still not, like, SAP is like the big clump of ham in your split pea soup that like it didn't break apart yet. It's still like right there. And the other ones have kind of diffused and sort of become part of the flavor, and SAP hasn't quite done that yet. I don't know. It's because SAP is much, much older than those things, right? So you'd think it would be, I don't know. I feel like I'm jabbering now, but you get my point, right? Is that the technologies have these different boiling points and different diffusion points and different whatever that go into their ecosystems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To stay with the soup analogy.
Yes, let's do it. Guys, we're 24/7 soup here, okay? All soup all the time.
Stay with the soup analogy. What if it's far too hot? And many consultants are guilty of burning the customers by constantly offering them the latest new thing. An example, in my company, it was the good old HR system. Right? They were told us, they being consultants, said the WebDimpro Java is the way to go. That's the way you should have all your reports in WebDimpro Java, right? So we did. Yeah. I paid consultants lots of money. Then by the time it was finished, it was no, that's no good. It's WebDimpro ABAP that you really want, right? So you've got to redo all the things you've just written in this new technology. Okay, then. By the time you do that, don't be ridiculous. Webinfo ABAP, it's UI5. That's what you've got to go for. We do them all again.
Yeah.
At which point, no, we won't.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
Because by the time we do that, it'll be something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So perhaps missing the odd technology along the way isn't the end of the world.
Right. And maybe it's a good strategy, right? To like leave some brain space for like your life, right? Don't stuff every single thing inside your head. Like, you know, remember your family's birthdays or whatever occasionally, something like that, right?
So again, that development manager has never heard of BOPF. By the time he has, it's obsolete. Maybe it's not such a huge loss after all.
Yeah, and like if it didn't change the world by like it didn't rise to your attention, well, maybe you secretly did the right thing anyway by not paying attention to it in the first place. Yeah.
It's funny. I skipped the whole WebDyn Pro. I just skipped it consciously. I like looked at it. Okay, it looks neat, but you know, I don't want to deal with it at all. And I'm pretty happy about this decision.
Look at that.
I think that's actually most valuable knowledge in SAP space is to know which things to spend your time on. And I'm sure your Paul and Paul, your radars are already fine-tuned pretty well towards what actually has some longevity and what doesn't. But I'm curious if newer generation of developers, if they might be struggling more with that than we did in our time.
I find that what people do with new technology is look up to see what all the shiny new words are, put it on their resume, right? Whether they know about it or not. And that's if you ever want a list of buzzwords or new technologies, just look at a resume. You'll see them all there.
Yeah. And like at some point that's the optimal way to do it, right? Like if your career goal is like I'm going to make enough money to retire, then maybe the right thing to do is shuffle acronyms into your resume, get a better job, shuffle more into your resume, get a better job, shuffle them more, amass more money from the man, whatever, right? And sail off into the sunset with a alphabet soup, keeping soup in there, with alphabet soup of technologies in your resume and a nice big fat retirement account, and there you go. All said and done, you did it. You did the right thing. Okay, guys. I'm gonna ding the bell. Ding. New topic. Okay. Paul. Great April 1st post out there. No cod development. I want to ask, first of all, just generally to all of us, is April Fool's dead?
It wasn't a lot this year.
Yeah.
Normally, it's a pleasure to read the newspapers.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's so much nonsense in it.
Yeah.
There's been one year in Australia, it's brilliant. Read the news. You're talking about underwater rugby and garden gnomes, which boost your Wi-Fi signal because in their fishing rod is a hidden aerial.
Right.
Yeah. The news it's a huge pleasure. But this year I went looking and I couldn't spot anything really.
Yelena, did you see much out there?
Yeah, I keep repeating, kind of retweeting Paul Hardy's blog from years ago about SAP Brewery because I love it so much, and there is always someone who hasn't read it yet and they really enjoy it. But yeah, I have to agree, and I think it may be just overall depressing mood. I don't know, in the world, maybe that's what kind of dampened it a little bit this year. I certainly hope to have more next year. And Paul's blog, which I caught too late because of the date difference, came up on March 31st.
I did it about 11 o'clock in the morning Australia time.
Oh yeah,
and it had been April the 1st for almost 12 hours, but no, the rest of the world
not in the United States, I guess, or wherever that timestamp is on the SAP community. It's funny.
You got to look at when is this going to post UTC? That's why I should click save, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It does feel like things have slowed down. I used to look forward to the Google one, and now Google doesn't do them anymore. Yeah, they had one. Google had one where it was like you could request that your email be printed, and there was like they would ship it like a truck to you with all of your email printed off, and the way they would save money would be they'd print ads on the other side of the paper, So you'd have a giant boxes full of your email, and then like, you know, Walmart ads on the other side of the paper of all the emails and stuff. Anyway, I miss those things, you know. And Elena, we used to do those at Mindset, and there's a couple of years that slipped by, we forgot, but like Mindset Consulting used to do them, and I think Bodark did one last year. I'm not sure, but anyway, like I just wish the tradition went on, because the spirit of that, and the spirit you got into there, Paul, I think is positive for the world, you know. And I think us nerds need to take everything a little bit less seriously, probably, in the universe.
Yeah.
If I may be so bold in saying that. Yeah.
There was a very good one some years back where someone claimed that you could have the SAP GUI on your watch.
That was Mindset Consulting. Yeah. And there was one, we did one where it was it was SAP GUI in your Tesla screen on your car. So you could type in T codes to like control your Tesla.
We should do like anthology or something, or for all the blogs. I mean, who says you cannot post them again on outside of April 1st?
Yeah.
Just there you go. You know, you need more fun. There you go.
I have a list somewhere. I compiled them. Yeah. So yeah.
I'm curious though if we can. I mean, of course, Paul's blog was humorous, and in that spirit, I'm wondering if we want to kind of talk, I don't know, just very slightly more seriously about that low code and obvious nod to AppGyver app. So, Paul Moderman, I know you had a great podcast episode recently with, sorry, forgetting the name right now, but it will come to me in a second.
Matthias
When you talked
Steiner?
about,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you talked about low code, but really, I dislike marketing term low code myself. And I think your definition, it's like accelerated rapid app development. That I think is much better term for it. So I'm curious, since Paul Hardy is our guest, Paul, are there any serious thoughts that you have on low code and AppGyver and all of that?
Well, oddly enough, I was contacted 2 months ago by the CEO of a company called D-Pros in Israel. He wanted to demonstrate something to me, and it was what I would call a sort of ALV robot type thing, where again, either alter an existing standard SAP report or create one for your own not by writing ABAP code, but by ticking boxes, as it were, and dragging things around and what have you. And
did they reinvent like SQ01 or something? Because that's what they did pretty much.
Yeah, and again, apparently his product is he's cornered the market in Israel for this sort of thing. All the government and the big companies there use his tool and things. And it, again, it's all very impressive. But as a developer, I'm always going to be pushing for the writing code type approach, because I'm biased, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I'll give you another example. Again, right at home from where I work, we bought one of these robotic process automation tools.
Oh yeah.
Not the SAP one, but something like the UiPath, one of the competitors. But they're all the same sort of thing, because SAP bought its one off the shelf, bought another company, and then stamp SAP on the top of its name. As you do. But what I found is you go looking for citizen developers, right? And to my mind, if the people who end up doing it, end up being programmers. We found this gentleman and said, right, are you interested in this? Most people weren't, to be honest. And it starts off, dragging boxes around, connecting them like a PowerPoint, or not PowerPoint, Visio. Yeah, Visio, that's the word. I do one of these things, right? Start off, putting boxes together and all that, and you get it, and it's you think, whoa, you can only do 90% or 95% of what I want. Then you go to the vendor or the help and say, how do I get that last 5%? Said, oh, you can add code. You can add code inside those boxes. Great. I'll have some code here, some code there. Before you know it, it's crawling with code because you can put it there. That's and in the end of the day, it may end up with more code than in your low code solution, like an RPA, than you had in a real thing if you'd written it by hand.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's a lot of these discussions about low code and no code also still include the pro code, the pro code moniker, which is, now we need a nerd to do the hard things, right? Or the code hard things. There's the business hard and the code hard, right? And I think I've done a lot of reading, and of course I talked to Matthias and I talked to Holger Bruchelt from formerly from SAP, now from Microsoft, about this. And I think that world is kind of swirling around and solidifying around an idea that they call fusion teams or fusion approach or whatever, which is to say that, like, in a rough example, like the person who knows what the business needs to do, they're going to do the prototype version of whatever, and they're going to make it for like their little use case, and it's going to like kind of clunk along and do whatever. And the idea is that the fusion team is like the clunk maker, the citizen developer is the clunk maker, and then the pro developer is the one who makes it like take the clunker and make the clunker into a thing that everyone can use, right? And that's kind of the sort of we all kumbaya, live in harmony kind of thing, and move app development forward in that respect. Because I like, there are absolutely cases where I think where low and no code have worked and can work, but it's never the whole scenario. You know what I mean? Like it's always a very thinly sliced thing that you can accomplish solely with the dragging and dropping. And to Paul's point, as soon as you hit, but I want it to be like purple and upside down, there it is. Now you're just sort of like leaped over the wall, and guys like Paul or women like Yelena or like me are like rushing to the rescue with like more code to do the things. So it's, my read on it, again, on the soapbox here, is that like the tide is rising, but it's got this effect where none of the pro developers should be worried at all, because there are going to be 10 million things to still do, and 10 million ways to do new things and glue other things together, that there's just no point in being like, it's like any of us on this podcast, or anybody who is a pro developer listening to this podcast, should never be worried about your job, because like until there's an AI that's like a human being, like Terminator, until there's that, there's always going to be a need for pro code dev stuff.
Well, the example I always give is the gentleman who sat next to me at work for 10 years, who's retired now. And he said when he was a young man and he started programming, there was, again, rumors that very soon now, it said there'll be they didn't call it low code, of course, but a thing that will be able to just tell the system what you want, and it'll generate the program for you without one line of code. At that stage, he was still programming using punch cards. Right?
And it was any day now, yeah.
And then they were worried back then, but they didn't need to be. It's like, here we are 50 years on or whatever, and we're still hearing the exact same rumors and the exact same new products without one line of code. It's nothing new under the sun. Nothing ever changes.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that the things that we are seeing right now, they're not exactly brand new. The marketing terminology, low code, no code, and the stupidest term citizen developer, they are new. But the thought behind it, it's not even new. Like the same SQ01 that SAP query or ABAP query, however it's named these days, that was original low code in SAP, and even that good old BDC recording that you go into the screens, you do your sequence, and it generates report for you that you can then you take and then you cut down the pieces that you want from it and you write some code on top of it. And that's where I think SAP's marketing approach, selling these tools as solution to software developer shortage problem, that's not going to solve the problem, I think, at all. Low code tools. Yeah, please go ahead, Paul.
I'm just suddenly occurred to me, right? And this was when I had to speak, otherwise I forget because I've got a 10-second memory like a goldfish. Right? The meeting I've got at 1 o'clock this afternoon, right, is we're taking this spreadsheet and we're trying to move it inside SAP. And this spreadsheet, you could say it was written by a citizen developer, right? Because that's what people do in the business. They get a spreadsheet and they start off with just adding the cells together.
Yeah.
Then they'll do some VLOOKUPs and what
Yeah.
have you, and add some tabs, and they do VLOOKUPs here. Then, if they're savvy enough, they put a few macros in here and there, which is code in my books. Does anyone ever call them citizen developers? Is a good question.
Yeah.
No.
It's quite likely, isn't it? And again, it gets to the stage where this is wonderful, this is fantastic, but it's outside the computer system, it's offline and all that. How much better would it be if it was integrated with the SAP data? And so it's time to take the beast that's grown over could be 10 years, right? A more and more complicated Excel spreadsheet and ABAP size it, as it were.
Yeah, I think we should all just give in to the charm of Excel spreadsheets. Just the word that I think it's like another cockroach of IT. That's Excel spreadsheet. I think they will never die. There is that very nice sci-fi series Expanse on Amazon Prime right now, but I think it's a great mistake that Excel spreadsheets do not appear even once in that series. I'm sure they still exist in that far future in that world, because it's just eternal tool. They're great. I mean, there's so many things you can do with it, and going against them is a huge mistake. You just adopt them and just give in.
Yes, you're never gonna get rid of it. Rather like the SAP GUI, really. Or formerly GUI.
Uh-oh.
I'm having so many thoughts right now. I probably should just write them down and blog about them or something, because there's this is I could get stuck in this discussion forever. So I'm gonna ding my own little bell and say ding, next subject, because I'm feeling the but what about blah, blah, and that's gonna get me stuck, and I don't want to do that. Okay, guys. And it's something that I don't have a ton of experience in, but I wonder if you guys have either done some or read more about it or taken more approaches. We've heard about the ABAP RAP methodology, right? The rapid API development kind of stuff, right? Or RESTful ABAP programming approach. And Yelena pointed this out, and this is kudos to her for that. There's a what grinds my gears sense to some of the things out there in that RAP space. Yelena, give us a brief here's what grinds my gears about RAP. Rah, 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 rah. Give us the first go of that.
Yeah, I have a long list. I think to me, and it may be I'm as an experienced ABAP developer might be slightly biased in it, because I have certain, I have my list of programs that I have developed. They do certain things, and I already know how to do some things well. So when something new comes about, it would be really nice, at least for me, and I believe many other experienced developers, to see how we can use all this knowledge and kind of adopt it in the new ways, in the good ways. And to me, some things that were pretty easy already to do in classic ABAP development, they are not maybe that easy to do properly, and properly is a big word in ABAP RAP. And I have a complaint to lodge with Paul Hardy, because I think the chapter in your ABAP to the Future book on ABAP RAP, I mean, it should have been.
Oh no!
It really should have been like the
next
whole
subject.
separate
Don't
book. Please, if we definitely need more practical information about ABAP RAP, because what we know so far, it's the famous OpenSAP course. It's all of the webinars that came out of it that essentially are rehashing the same material. There are a few, I think, items here and there, like tutorials, etc., but there isn't really nearly as much material that's needed for practical application of this programming model like today, right now. Not tomorrow, not in the cloud, not in some sci-fi the expanse future, but right now. Because there are some things that are easily done, but it's not just me, many developers at work, we are basically struggling. How do we do this within certain constraints of this new model? And most importantly, how do we do it well?
Oh, Paul, I bet you Paul has lots of thoughts. So please jump in and return that serve, so to speak.
The underlying problem here is not perhaps related to SAP. Maybe it's related to the software market as a whole. And that is, software companies have a gigantic incentive to release something before it's ready, right? No matter what it is, because the idea is, if you don't, right, someone else, let's say Oracle maybe, or whoever, will release it first. And even though it doesn't work properly, because they've got one, you haven't, they'll corner the market. Right? And by the time you release your one that does work, it is too late. Theirs works by that point.
Right.
So they both have to release things that don't work. Right? And the end result is that every single thing that gets released doesn't work. So it is not really an ideal situation. Imagine that the end state of the RAP is a frog, right? And it does all the frog things that you'd expect. It hops around the lily pond, right? It catches flies with its tongue. It does all the basic frog things, right? But when they release it and say, look at this great new frog we've got, you say, that's not a frog, that's a tadpole. It can't hop, it can't catch flies, it hasn't even got any legs. It's just a thing with a tail. And unfortunately, the RAP is like that because even the name keeps changing, which is not unusual with SAP. At the moment, it's the RESTful application programming model. And it used to be the RESTful ABAP programming model. And it's changed, the name's changed twice since then. But that's the irrelevant part. Right? The most relevant part is when I was writing my chapter on the RAP, it took me, let's say it took 8 weeks, much longer than any other one. And there's a reason for that. During that 8-week period, when I was writing that chapter, there were 2 releases came out, during that, and code that compiled at the start of the 8-week, halfway through, it was getting warnings. And at the end of it, it was getting syntax errors. Because it had changed that much. And I thought to myself, how can I write about this? It's changing faster than I can write. And SAP is selling this as production ready. And some, I would consider foolish companies have gone with this, like Lego being a prime example. And they've got actual productive applications. And I thought to myself, how can you have a productive application if every 3 months, probably more often, you've got to go and rewrite it all because your existing codes suddenly got syntax errors where it didn't have before. Because it's not like ABAP, where it was all traditional ABAP, where it was always downward compatible. And a new release came out and you knew nothing was going to break. That's not the case with the RAP at all. Right? You've got to keep changing it. And so I'd say, wait until it's a frog, then judge it.
Now I'm wondering what's the timeline on that, because if you watch presentations on that subject, it's like, classic ABAP obviously already gone. It's like 1999. Fiori model, it's still safe investment, but you guys need to get in on that ABAP RAP train. That's what SAP has been telling us, not for months, for I would say a year at minimum.
I'd say it's probably 2 years, to be honest. Because it was touted as production ready from the very first day, but it wasn't, and it still isn't.
I'm kind of curious, and I don't know if any of you have any scoop on this. So what's the deal with those different scenarios, that managed, unmanaged? Because to be honest, I don't really see much value in that managed scenario, because it's just very narrow application. And at the same time, it's not easy to jump from one to another. Like if you take that path, then going back and taking another path, it will be very difficult. You will have essentially to scratch your code and almost start from the beginning with a different scenario. So why, I honestly, I don't understand why even bother with these 2 scenarios instead of just make an effort and make just one of the scenarios work maybe better.
You're right. You can't move between them. because the whole plumbing, shall we say, is utterly different between the managed and the unmanaged. Because in one of them, it's doing what I call the black magic under the hood. It's what you could say it's like a logical database in that way.
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
Because when I first encountered one of those things, I was really puzzled. I thought, where's the selection screen coming from? It's not in the program. Where's it coming from? Where's the database reads? They're not in the program either. And it's the same way with the RESTful ABAP programming module. And SAP says this is wonderful. We do it all for you, but it's scary when it's all under the hood, because you don't know how it's working. You don't know if it's really doing it in the most efficient way. Because people say, oh, no, it must be brilliant because it was written by SAP and all their programmers are geniuses. Well, if you've ever gone to a party in SAP headquarters and talked to a few of the staff, you might think,
Uh-oh. Shots fired.
Yeah, shots fired. Oh no. But that's an interesting point too, is that the things, there's a degree to which the level of hiddenness of abstractions can be dangerous, right? In other words, if this particular slice or flavor of wrap is sort of leaves you baffled as to like, but how is it even doing that? Then what happens is, as developers, we can't develop a mental model of it, and then if something goes wrong, we have no idea how to like poke it and like twist the dials and flip the switches and make it go better, right? If I don't understand how the thing works, I can't like put my wrench on the right nut and go, there you go, now it's better, right? So maybe that's part of the core of some of the frustrations there too, Yelena, is the like the hidden layers of, like, there's too many hidden layers, right? Yeah.
And some of it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like I said, there's two different scenarios. If you cannot go from one to another relatively easily, that's kind of deal breaker to me, because I'm not even going to bother introducing one to my client, because I know they're going to want something different. The second you implement it using this managed scenarios, they'll say, what about this? It covers 90%, but the 10% is super duper important to me. So now you have to go back and start with a new scenario. And on top of that, there are just completely bizarre things that simply just allowed in certain situations. Like, for example, I was trying to use validation commands there. I'm not even sure in which language this whole stuff is written these days. It looks like ABAP, but it's definitely not. So you enter validation and then you get syntax error and it says, oh, you're using unmanaged scenario like without a draft, but only with like unmanaged with draft this is allowed. Like, do people not use validations without the draft? I don't get it. Like, what's the connection there? And again, to me, it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. You introduce something that's great, but then these tiny little things, they take so much away that at some point I'm wondering if it's like a cabbage, you peel and peel and peel it, and you end up with just a core in the end. I think it definitely takes away a lot from a desire of developers to use this model.
Yeah. Okay. Once more. Ding, ding, ding. Next subject. You guys heard of the game F, Marry, Kill?
Yes.
I looked it up this very morning.
Yeah. Okay. The brilliant idea was undertaken. Let me pause here. My dog is barking. I might have to back up in my recording here. My doorbell rang.
I've had a helicopter flying around in circles.
Have you? Okay.
Did
you guys hear my dog?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So my buddy Rich is good at helping this. So like, I'll give it a sec for that guy to drop off his whatever he's dropping off, and then I'll back up and do it again. He's good at stitching them together. I think they're gone now. Okay. Okay. So the Rich, I'm going back. Stitch this back together, please. Thank you. Have you guys heard of the game F, Marry, Kill? And F, of course, being an abbreviation of
The F word.
make love
Literally.
to. Yeah. The F is the F word. Yeah. F, Marry, Kill. Yelena, this is a good idea, I think, for a good aftertaste, a good little close it off, have some fun segment here.
Yep.
I think we should all three of us should pick three little things from the SAP bucket as our F, Marry, Kill things. So the F is, think about it this. The F is you can use it one time and love it, but then you're done. The marry is, yes, I'm married to it, and by gosh, we're going to the grave together. And the kill is, you drop the hard drive containing it into the sea, right? It's done, right? So I nominate Yelena as our first contestant in F, Marry, Kill. Yelena,
All right.
please give us your F, Marry, Kill list.
I'll go with my choices for SAP World. So I will start with Marry because it's the easy part. I would say Marry CDS views because RAP or no RAP, Fiori model, whatever model, I think they are pretty neat tools that is there to stay probably for foreseeable future. So learn how to use them, learn how they work, what they do, how to take advantage of them. Then for the F part, I would probably put maybe there are so many choices to pick and drop, but I would pick maybe SAP AppGyver. Surprisingly, I think it's a really fun little app, and I think right now is perfect time to do that before SAP kind of went in with their stomping feet and spoiled the heck out of it. While it's still nice and fresh, new to SAP world, just go and explore and play with that application before it gets spoiled. And
you heard it here first. Yelena had a one-night stand with AppGyver.
No, that's exactly what it was for me. And from the kill department, I vote with two hands for SAP script. Just get rid of the flipping thing. Just get it, destroy all of them, burn it with fire. Those are my choices. Paul Hardy, yes.
Paul, yes, this window on my screen right here, that one. Paul, you're next.
Okie cokes. Well, go start with a good old one-night stand. Use it once and really, really enjoy it, and then throw it away. I would put in this bucket, pretty much any new ABAP syntax feature. What I learned about it, and I have great fun getting it to work. What's the new statement that we reduce? Or and it's really, really pleasurable to get it to work and say, right, I've got this work. I've worked it out. Great. This new syntax, it compiles fantastic. I had a great time using that. Am I ever going to use it again? No, because it's more complicated and it's harder to understand and harder to read, and you can't debug the bloody thing. So it was nice while it lasted. Goodbye. Here's a taxi money. Right. Right. The one that I'm going to stay married to, because and again, I know Yelena doesn't like it very much, but it's a good old ABAP unit and test-driven development. I've become a huge convert to that, and I'm using it. I'm using it in virtually most new developments.
We got to talk then.
Tomorrow.
We got to talk. Yeah, we got to have another episode because
it's going to be spin-off. Yeah, spin-off show. Yeah,
just put a pin in that, Paul. We'll come back to that some other time. Yeah,
that's right. And one to be killed and thrown in the sea is WebDimpro ABAP. It doesn't deserve to live. I've still got it in my book, but that'll be the last time. It won't be in future editions because it's horrible. It always has been. It pretty much was from day one.
Yeah. Chuck it into the ocean. Okay, guys, my list, my F, Marry, Kill. And I'm going to try to be interesting here. I'm trying to be like a little bit weird, okay? So my F is going to be, even though I have been married to it for a while, I'm going to go into our post-marriage one-night stand kind of thing, and that's SAP UI5. Not because it's a bad thing, but because it, in the broader marketplace, I don't know how much it actually makes a difference. I think a lot of places are opting to make SAP data and SAP processes available in other ways besides Fiori. And I think that, you know, I'm gonna spend a little more time in UI5 and keep my skills up for a little while there, but I'm gonna give it pretty soon here. I'm gonna give it the taxi money, and it can Uber off from my apartment, my studio apartment, into wherever will. Okay, so there's that, and that's coming from me. I've written 3 books that have UI5 code in them. So this is like a big thing, right? This is why it's a divorce and not just like an F. It's like a get divorced and then, you know, one night stand after divorce.
One for the road.
Yeah, one for the road.
I'm just gonna say that's not great for your book sales, Paul.
Well, yeah. Well, let's just say that my royalty checks aren't exactly paying my mortgage anyway. So, the kill, again, trying to be a little bit here, and maybe look forward. I think maybe kill Cloud Foundry stuff, because I think it's time to do cloud in the cloud hyperscalers, the Azure, Google, AWS. Like, do the cloud where the cloud experts are, and scale and whatever, and do it there where that's their core competency, and where I mean, SAP is building on top of them anyway, right? I say do the cloud things there where the cloud platform people are the experts, and leave the like Cloud Foundry stuff. Let's just not. It's gonna sound cranky, and maybe somebody's gonna hate me. I don't know, but I guess bring the haters. Okay. My Mary is, I was gonna say CDS, Yelena, because I think CDS is like a good Swiss Army knife for a lot of purposes.
Yeah, great minds think alike. So
yeah. So, but let me try to pick another one here. Okay, so to have another thing in here too is, let's see, if I'm gonna keep one thing around forever, it's gonna be something like this is also going to sound weird, and maybe it doesn't matter anymore, but I think SLT has a lot of good uses. The System Landscape Transformation tool that gets your data and gets it out of SAP to other places for you. I think something like that has a lot of good uses, especially given my bias toward get the data out to where it's useful, right? Like that's my thing there too. So yeah. Boy, I hope I don't encourage a lot of haters for what I just said, but I'm gonna go strong on it.
Yeah, I think haters probably started with Cloud Foundry. Someone is at SAP headquarters must be having a heart attack right now.
Yeah. But okay. Well, anyway, so that was the fun bit. That was the stuff. That was the wrap it up in a good way. So, Paul, we want to say thank you. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your expertise. We appreciate your good humor, your good nature, all that kind of stuff. Thank you for coming on and regaling us with tales of the everything, and just talking with a couple of nerds who love to nerd about stuff. Thank you.
Always a pleasure, never a chore.